Okay, so I just want to spend a few minutes talking about, sorry, I had to lean over there for a second, checking my notes. Okay, just want to spend a few minutes talking about some other considerations when you're just getting started. So, I think it's tough for families when they register for a program and it doesn't work. I know it's tough for families when they register for a program and it doesn't work. So this next section, we're just going to talk about some other things you could do before you register for a program, because it doesn't have to be that, that's your first step. So let's talk about some other first steps. There are a growing number of organizations who offer something that's called like a come and try it. These are usually structured in such a way that there's a low cost or no cost to coming out. And it's a neat opportunity for your child to get to come, see the environment, meet the leaders, try some of the activities, but not be like you haven't paid a bunch of money, you haven't committed a bunch of time in your schedule, and you can just sort of get an assessment of what's going to work and not work. And these types of opportunities are offered by both, quote unquote mainstream and quote unquote adapted programs, which I'm going to spend a second defining here in a moment. So for example, we work with an organization that's Vancouver Island based, but also has programming here in the Lower Mainland called Power to Be. And they run adapted opportunities in the outdoor recreation sphere. And they every year run a big come and try it event at their kind of main home base in Victoria, where they set up different activities and families and individuals can come, try some of the things they do, like they can try canoeing, they can try geocaching, try some of those types of things. As a parent, you get to meet the leaders who lead the activities, you get to see how your child responds to the different things. And I think that's a really nice way to try before you buy, right? So before you get too committed, come and try it out. These are also offered by, just like your kind of local community sport organizations. So come and try ringette, come and try soccer, come and try all kinds of things. One of the programs that we do at Canucks Autism Network is called a Training and Try It. So we will work with a local sport organization. We'll host a workshop for them in the morning. So for example, we've done this with canoe kayak clubs. So 3 hours, we get their coaches, we teach them about lots of stuff. And then in the afternoon, we invite Canucks Autism Network families to come, and they get a 1 hour time slot. And the coaches who we just trained in the morning lead the activity with the kids in the afternoon. So it's a huge win-win because the coaches get that information and the opportunity to practice supporting children with autism, and families who have a child with autism get to come and try the activity, again, in a very low-risk way. Now, this is tricky in COVID, clearly. I don't think we'll be seeing quite as many come and try opportunities, but I don't think they're going to disappear, especially if they are activities that can be done quite safely. So for example, some of the more outdoor-based activities where you're talking about small groups are a little bit easier at this time to offer. So Power to Be, who I referenced, is back up and running with programming, and we'll see what they come out with. This is another one that's tough in COVID, but perhaps not impossible. You just have to ask. Something that I've had many parents tell me that they love to do is go and watch. And it depends on what you're talking about and what the activity is and who leads it and where it occurs. But it's another great way. You can go either with your child or without to get a sense of what's happening, right? So if it's soccer and your kid's like maybe thinking they want to try soccer, can you go and watch a local practice? In some cases, there'd be nothing to stop you from doing this. You could just go and watch safely from a distance, watch the kids on the field engaging in their thing, and talk to your kid about it. Like, what do you think? Does this look like fun? See what they say. Your kid may have some questions about it. Certainly from a COVID perspective, your kid, children are all over the place in terms of their comfort level with participating in things right now. So a great chance to have a look and see if you think something would make sense for your child. I don't know with COVID how this one is going to look exactly. There may be chances, depending on the facilities, where there are still safe ways for people to observe. But that would be something you would want to talk to. I'll talk later about kind of who you can talk to within the system to ask these type of questions. But you'd probably want to talk to someone in the system to ask these questions before you go ahead with something like this. Oh, here we go. Right. So thinking back to our municipal recreation column that we talked about at the beginning. Municipal recreation column meaning stuff you find in a leisure guide that's offered by the city you live. So City of Terrace or Prince Rupert or wherever you are. Those municipal run programs have someone who is responsible for organizing them, okay? And it really varies depending where you live around the province or elsewhere. Some communities have an actual dedicated, what they would call an access team. If you live in one of those places, that's a neat resource to be aware of. So, for example, if you live in the city of Surrey, they have an access services group within their municipality. You can actually talk to these people about, you could get on the phone and talk to them about what you think, what are the programs they run, what support is available, what does the structure look like, can I bail if the first session goes badly, all those types of questions. If you live in a smaller community, you probably don't have a dedicated access person, but there is still someone, usually they're called a program coordinator or supervisor or something of that nature. If you go on your city's website and you go into recreation, you can usually, especially if you live in a small town, actually, it's usually easier to find a community directory and find these people. You can get on the phone and you can talk a little bit about what some of the programs are. And there's a lot you can learn from that conversation that might be really helpful before you dive in and sign up for something. I'm going to talk in a little bit, just before I leave this slide though, I'm going to talk in a little bit about how sometimes it doesn't matter what type of program it is. Like, is it a specialized adapted program or is it a mainstream program? What really matters the very most is who are the people involved and what is their appetite for supporting your child. So this is another question you can really get at through this kind of conversation is, there are going to be, I have met them, there are champions of inclusion everywhere and in different areas of sport and recreation. And, sometimes the biggest champions are not identified or labeled in that way whatsoever. So if you don't get in there and kind of talk to people, it's kind of difficult to see if you might have someone on the inside who can help you out. Okay, another, I think, really important point is, we certainly see this all the time at Canucks Autism Network is, if you have an expectation that your child's going to jump in and participate and perform exactly like all the other kids on the first day, we might be setting ourselves up for failure, right? So, and this is true of all children, by the way. This is not necessarily an autism-specific thing. But we need to realize that, if we have this expectation that kids are supposed to do it exactly the same way, that's really not fair to children. It's certainly not fair to adults either, right? Like, you need to be able to, again, have leaders who have some flexibility with you. So I'm not saying, it can sometimes tip dangerously the other way, where people say, oh, he did 5 minutes, that's great, now he should go. Like, I've seen that too. That's not really what I'm getting at. What I'm getting at here is just flexibility, right? So if you are working with a leader in your community who is okay with your family doing it a slightly different way, so if your kid goes to soccer and if after 20 minutes that was good for the day and let's go home and make it a good day, that's a really nice situation to be in, okay? Also, really, if you're working with a leader who understands, my primary goal with having my child signed up for hockey is not that they learn the perfect slap shot. It's actually that she has a lot of fun and that she's physically active and that she's out in her community doing something. Those are what's most important to me, and if you're supporting her and you're noticing, that's what I want you to focus on. If you can have those conversations with people and they can understand those important points, it can really help things go smoothly. And I find that's all about your leader. And again, I don't think these champions or these amazing leaders are necessarily always grouped in the same type of recreation, because I have met leaders who are in adapted recreation that struggle with this. And I have met leaders in mainstream recreation that are phenomenal at this. So it's really about knowing the person that you're working with. And my final point here is try not to give up forever. It's almost guaranteed that you're going to have some experiences that don't go well. And if you can remind yourself, as I mentioned before, that even showing up was your victory. Like that was the thing that made this successful. The fact that you guys got here, you gave it a try, that's important. It can be tiring, and that's why, again, I was mentioning the more you can involve a village of people, the better. So it's not always you who's the one out there trying to fight and advocate for your child. Okay? The first time might not be the best time. So your kid really might not enjoy cross-country skiing when you try it when he's 4 or 5 or 6, but you might try it again later when he's 9 or 10 or 11, and it's a completely different experience. So it's a great idea to kind of, if you can maintain that energy, try things out again later and see how interests might have changed or readiness. There are lots of kids who have many challenges related to certain sensory sensitivities that really seem to change as they grow, right? So some kids who in their early years really struggle with certain, for example, like needing to wear a helmet or needing to have mittens on their hands to stay warm. And as they get older, their tolerance for those things changes, and or they have found better equipment that they feel more comfortable in, all that kind of thing. And then you can go back and try some of those activities again that maybe you tried when they were young and didn't go well. You can try again later. Okay. Finally, what if I can't get them to do anything? So screen time, I'm not going to spend so much time on this today, but I'm certainly familiar with this problem. And I think, again, all of us struggle with this. We're not just talking about children with autism, but getting people off their screens and out doing things active. Just know that you're not alone. You and your family are not alone in having struggles around this stuff. In our workshop on November 5th, the next workshop I'm going to teach, we're going to talk a lot more about strategies or ideas you can try to help your child get motivated to get off their screen and out and doing things. And remember, if getting out and doing things feels like punishment to your child, we really want to get into trying enough things that we find things that are actually enjoyable for the child, right? As opposed to punishment. Okay. Oh, and I just put this picture on this slide because this is just today's reality, right? So this is the little guy. We've been hosting these like virtual hockey clinics, and I'll talk more about those later. But, even recreation right now, some of it we're doing through a screen, and it's better than nothing, right? Absolutely, 100%, it's better than nothing. But it's hard that so much of our life right now in this pandemic involves us needing to sit in front of a screen, like you are today, by the way. So, okay. So as I said, on November 5th in the next workshop, I'm going to talk a lot more about strategies to increase motivation and engagement. By the way, none of these are autism specific. None of these are child specific. This is not about coercing your child to do things. This is about strategies all of us use in our lives every single day, diagnosis, no diagnosis, that help us to be more successful. For example, how important it is at the foundation that you have a great relationship with the leader and that it's a fun activity from your perspective. The importance of choice, right? If I get told, if someone was to tell me, this is how you have to exercise this week. I want you to run 5K on Monday. I want you to, do 50 push-ups on Tuesday. I want you to go and swim 20 laps on Wednesday. There's no way I would do it, right? Not fun, not my choice, right? So how can we use the power of choice to help people get more engaged, right? True for all of us, definitely true for kids as well. This idea of first then, again, nothing to do with autism. This is just the fact of life that a lot of us need to kind of know what's coming next that we can look forward to. So if I get my exercise done, then I can spend an hour on Netflix watching a movie or something, okay? Point systems, all these things, schedules, visuals, all that stuff we're gonna talk about on November 5th. None of that specific to autism, all of it just ideas that should help us to think about motivation and engagement and some real tools that we can use to get kids involved.